All right. Here we are, folks. Ruthless Politics, the podcast number 8. They call it the Ocho.
The Ocho.
Yep.
You know the Ocho is actually a channel on ESPN now? Because
Did they
it was a
do
joke.
that?
Yeah, it was a joke from the dodgeball movie.
Yes,
it was pretty funny joke, actually. And now they actually have a channel with all those weird sports on it, and you can watch it. It's great, man.
Yeah. Okay. See what I'm talking about, Jesse, right there? Yeah, there we go. We can slide that kind of maybe over there for me over there. All right. Well, we got Jesse here with the Space Coast. There we go. I love it.
There's our beautiful buddy.
Center me.
I like to see my Republican right in the center there.
Hey,
there
jazz hands.
Is.
This is how you...
No sneaking out stage left, you freaking commie.
Right. At the National Democratic Socialists, they had a conference.
Why do they have to use that word? Damn it, Bernie.
Boy, you have to see this. It's so great. So they have this like point of privilege before they can talk. And there's an actual thing where you're triggered by... You can't applaud. That upsets people. So you have to do this with your hands to show approval through clapping. It's really
the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
No shit.
That is so stupid.
I mean, talk about control. I mean, how much more do we need to be controlled to where you can't even applaud people that you agree with?
Not to get off topic, but there is a movement kind of to control speech, like controlling kind of being politically correct. And as much as I agree with being politically correct in policy, I hate when they try to bring it over to speech or like clapping.
It's happening right now. Yeah.
Human things we all enjoy.
You seem to enjoy comedy like everybody else. It's destroyed comedy. Comedians won't go on college campuses because they're afraid.
And you know what? Now in the time of Donald Trump would be a great time for some great stand-up comedy, but we don't have the stand-up comedians left because as soon as they get a chance to movie or TV, they're out because, just stand-up comedy's also been ruined by the cell phone because everyone shoots the clips.
They don't like that.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle's really serious about that. They put them in bags and all these static bags, and you can't even have your cell phone. If you like stand-up comedy, though, good news. Eddie Murphy signed a two-picture comic stand-up deal with Netflix. I think he's getting $60 million for it. So if you like Eddie Murphy and he hasn't done stand-up in
it's been a
20
long
years.
Time. I mean, we missed Eddie Murphy so much that we were looking at Charlie Murphy. Like
yes,
he was filling the void.
That's
for a
how
while.
bad we needed Eddie Murphy back. That Charlie Murphy became a star. God bless. All right. Well, we got some topics that we're going to talk about today. Obviously, the main topic, folks. Jeffrey Epstein, we're going to lead off with the
Epstein. Why did you let him die, Trees?
Why did you
Republicans let him die?
Why did the Republicans let everybody down? Well, that's what we're going to debate. So in my opinion, this is the OJ, the 9/11, the whole thing. This is our big moment. We let it slip right through our fingers here. And we're going to discuss right now, and I'm going to let you lead off on some of what your opinions are, but what do you think happened here? Do you believe any of the conspiracies? Do you think this was legit? What happened to Jeffrey Epstein? We think he's dead. What happened?
Okay. On the surface, this is what I kind of think. I believe that Jeffrey Epstein was probably killed or was given the room to kill himself. They may have kind of just said, hey, be a samurai and fall on your sword. And that's kind of what I think happened. I believe that in this country, we have a system of checks and balances. And that when you have one of the parties that needs you for one reason or another, if you're going to out somebody on the other side, then that other party will protect you as part of the checks and balances. But when you have information on both parties, maybe information on Trump, maybe information on Clinton, obviously information on lots of important people because it is said that he kept blackmail on as many people as possible, then I think that you're out of people to protect you. And I think in that scenario, they either give you the room to kill yourself or help to kill you. And if you look, there's questions about the guard that was put in place. He didn't have a roommate. He's supposed to be on suicide watch. I mean, the questions are abundant. And let me tell you, folks, we're not going to get any answers.
No, we're not. And on a side note, we did predict this. You found the clip. So you can always go back and find, and we've talked about Jeffrey Epstein extensively on this podcast because this is big news and it's very important, and we missed out on something very important here. And one of the things that I've talked about is we've never really heard this guy talk. I defy anybody to find me an interview or even just something from Entertainment Tonight or whatever. I mean, he's been famous since the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. He hobnobs with very, very famous people. Now, we've seen the Donald Trump clip, which, by the way, they unearthed. And I don't know if you've seen this, and Donald Trump's like dancing. Like he's standing there with Epstein and he's shimmying his shoulders and they're watching those chicks. And that's when he leans over to Epstein. He's like, oh, she's pretty hot or whatever. And that's all we've got. And even then, Epstein's not talking. Trump's doing all the talking. I find it odd that we don't have any interview with this guy. He was very prominent, although, not A-list Tom Cruise celebrity, but somebody, I find that odd. A lot of pictures you can Google, tons of photos on Epstein. So so Kid Chronic believes that. So you believe he is dead, though? You're not of the conspiracy theory that he's alive and was given a hiding
could
thing.
our government give him a sleeping pill or something and push him out the back door? I mean, sure,
Right.
anything is possible with Epstein. We talked about it on this podcast, and we called it before it happened. And we said that the government needed to protect this guy, that he had information on both sides, and that if they let him die, it was going to be a serious controversy. And here we are, they've let him die, and it appears that we're not going to get many answers out of it.
Right. We're not going to get any, certainly not
Here's
from him.
one of the most interesting things I found in my research of Epstein. It's not really the Americans that he hung out with that I found so interesting. He met with MSB multiple times.
And MSB stands for?
It is Mohammed Sim. I don't know his.
Oh, you're talking about a Saudi Arabian situation?
The Saudi Arabian crown prince. It's Mohammed bin Salman.
Salman.
Mohammed bin Salman.
I never heard anyone call him
MBS is his nickname.
Yeah, Mohammed bin
So
Salman.
he met with MBS multiple times, and then
that's a Kushner buddy.
Yeah, if you look back and you read on it, Acosta said that the reason he didn't go after Epstein was because he was an intelligence asset, and I think everybody was acting like maybe he was an Assad agent. I saw in little articles in smaller publications, but I think what might have happened is that he actually was a U.S. government agent because he had connections to MSB, and I'm sure the U.S. government wanted as much information as they could get on the crown prince as possible at any time, and that would be something big enough to get him this light sentence that he got last time around.
Well, it is. They told Acosta that this is above your pay grade. Just do what we tell you to do as far as Epstein goes, which was even giving him prostitution charges. His charges alone were a problem. They gave him his sentence was a problem. His charges were a problem. He was with that girl, and yes, he paid her, but they found a loophole to he exchanged money, we'll make it a prostitution charge, and that is not nearly as much as a pedophilia charge or child molesting or whatever. So they already gave him that. Now, the other thing they did was, and which you just hit on, was the government told him once he was released, we're watching you, do what you do, we want information. So he became an informant for this country after that fact. Besides what you're talking about that he rubs elbows with, royalty in England, royalty in Saudi Arabia, royalty probably in Israel, you know what I mean? He's a Mossad agent, whether he is or not. Ghislaine Maxwell, they're almost certain is. Her father, Robert Maxwell, we know 100% was. So who he tied in with was very, very serious people.
It said that he was advising Elon Musk at Tesla, even though Elon Musk denies it, but there's a lot of proof to that.
He lied.
Yes.
And I love Elon Musk. He lied.
There's some other fascinating facts about our boy Epstein here. He had an island that he called Little St. James that he was developing in the Bahamas. And he actually must have had a lot of money because this island, he had a ferry at one point that would take 200 workers a day from the mainland over to the island to work and back. So you can imagine the type of construction that's going on when you buy a ferry to ferry people back and forth to the island. And then he bought another island next door. And the locals used to call the island, and this is true, Orgy Island or Pedophile Island.
Yeah. So they knew what was going on. Obviously, it was weird, this white man, and it was probably made for a lot of gossip on the islands over there for those folks.
And he had a rule that the staff, if he was on the island, was not to be seen. So when he showed up, it's like they're playing a shadow game around him.
Yeah.
And the staff said that there was a lot of girls hanging out topless, sunbathing naked, all of that stuff, people coming and going all the time because Epstein used the island all the time. Yeah. But the staff said that the girls did not look underage.
No, Epstein definitely. Epstein was definitely with women of normal age, but he also definitely obviously dabbled with these young girls.
He had an interesting view. He said criminalizing sex with teenage girls was a cultural aberration, and at times in history it was totally normal, and he compared it to homosexuality, which was once taboo and is now welcomed.
Well, not that I totally agree with that, but he's half right. That's happening right now. You can go right now, and Slate did something on this, whatever, but pedophilia, they're trying to gain acceptance to that. Some people do not believe that it's a disease, but that it's a sexual preference. And if you then regard it as that, and we water it down as a sexual preference, now we have to deal with it in a whole different manner than what is a sickness. And to add to his other point, when you look around country to country around this world, there's different ages of consent that the society deems. That there's no real law. The society deems that, and thus the law becomes it.
I think that's reasonable.
And it's done state to state as well, right? Because he got off. He doesn't have charges in New Mexico because 16 is the age of consent there. So he never got fucked with there.
And I would agree that sexuality is a kind of a preference, and this may be a sexual preference, but here's the rub. So if your sexual preference hurts someone else, then you have to ignore that preference. You don't get to override hurting someone else or committing a crime against someone else just to get your sexual preference off, right?
Well, let's forget it's a crime.
That's where it changes.
Well, here's where you hit it on the head. Here's the determining factor. Who made the rule? And I'd love to hear a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or anyone of merit come on to our show, or any show for that matter, and tell me, how did you deem what age of consent means they know what they're doing sexually, right? It's only criminal because we say children don't know how to make that decision when it comes to sex. That's what we've always heard, right? So a 12-year-old doesn't really know what they're doing if they're going to go fuck somebody, some adult. But does a 14-year-old? Does a 16-year-old? What's the age where we know, and who determines that?
We've agreed in this country that 18 kind of seems to be the age 100%. For adult stuff.
We did that for everything.
Personally, I find that to be pretty reasonable, but I was raised in this society, so maybe I have a little bias. I believe 16 to be too young.
For sex.
For sex. But now here's my
in 2019,
but here's my
Cardi
rub.
B?
But here's my rub on it. I think there should be some age variance, like allowance, because if she's 16 and she has sex with an 18-year-old boy, I don't think he should get in trouble, and that happens sometimes because there's
Same
only
as
a
50-year-old
difference there. You know?
Still, he's still a predator.
Now, Epstein bangs a 16-year-old girl. That guy needs to go to jail. That's a difference.
Understood. How did we determine that age that made sense psychologically? Forget, we can just arbitrarily throw a dart at a number and say, okay, it's 16 and that's it. But why is it 16? I'm asking you. Why
I
is
think
it
15?
It's
because
why
that's when you graduate high school and people figured, well, the kids are going to college, all bets are off. So
that makes that could be it too. Yeah. It's just very interesting.
I want to bring it back to Epstein real quick too. Here's one of the things. Epstein said that he kept evidence of all these people, and that he had evidence not only of politicians, tech people, and other celebrities having sex, but also of their casual drug use, and that all of this information was kept in a safe at the main house at Little St. James Island, and that house was raided by the FBI yesterday. So do you think that all this like dirt comes out, or is the FBI just going to use this behind the scenes to blackmail the most powerful people?
Well, yes, I do. I don't think it's going to come out, because I think this is why you wanted him dead in the first place, because you eliminate the mouth, then you gather all the other material, and you can do what you see as fit with that. Now, I'm not saying they're going to destroy it, but they will do as they see fit. And you're right. Now it becomes their blackmail and their thing. So let's take this a step further with Epstein. So what's also happened here is, so you have these conspiracy theories. First, you have, is he dead or is he not? Let's just say he's dead. We'll agree on that's not the thing. Your next conspiracy theory is, was he killed or did he hang himself? So the big thing was Clinton's killed him, Trump killed him, somebody killed him, someone powerful killed him. You made a point to me which started to kind of weigh more on me, because I am a believer in the Clinton body count. No proof of anything. Ben Shapiro, shout out to Ben Shapiro. He's right. There's no proof of any of this. We love to talk about it. It's great conjecture on the internet. There's no proof that the Clintons killed anybody.
Holy shit, I agree with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty staunch about it. But at the end of the day, for some reason, we don't say that about the Kennedys. We don't say that about the Obamas. We're not saying about the Trumps. The only family in politics, we don't say it about the Bidens. For some fucking reason, we have a Clinton body count. But you made a very good point. I don't think they have the power that they once did, that they could make that call. Well, to save him.
Let's be honest here, folks. I think that back in the day when Epstein first got in trouble, it's obvious that the U.S. government and maybe a Bill Clinton stepped in and got him a sweetheart deal. I think we could all probably agree to that's pretty reasonable.
And I don't even know if it was Bill Clinton that did that.
I think we can all agree that the U.S. government probably kills people all the time for all sorts of different reasons.
Sure, we have a CIA.
That's pretty reasonable. But I think what's different about the Clintons is that literally Putin hates them, and there's been a big war on the Clintons online. Nobody's taken more trash online than the Clintons. Sure. And so I think that a lot of these body count things and different things that are associated with them are kind of bullshit and just kind of put out there to hurt them. So I think you have to take those with a grain of salt a little bit.
There may have been some in the past that are more legit than this one.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. What I'm saying now is this: that you have Trump in power and you have AG Barr as the head of the Justice Department. So if they had evidence that Bill Clinton had killed somebody, they would love to arrest Bill Clinton, and they would love to do that, but they can't.
Is true.
And also Trump is implicated a lot in this. So I think when AG Barr comes out and says he's going to investigate, and when Trump tweets stuff about the Clintons, it's really just a cover for Trump's own involvement with Epstein. I personally believe, and I think any American has to be honest about this, if you think Clinton is involved with Epstein, which I as a Democrat can admit, then you also have to admit that Trump was involved in Epstein. Right. These people were all friends back then. There's photos of Trump, Epstein, and Clinton 100%. All together.
Yes,
we know
100%.
These men like women, and we know Epstein had the women.
They're
so
it
doesn't take rocket science to put this all together.
Let's also make this clear that Trump was friends with the Clintons. He was a donor to them. They were all part of a New York contingency. But when it was time to run against Hillary, it had to get mean, and this is what you do. Don't forget, Hillary Clinton went after Obama. They had a very, very messy primary, and those were both Democrats. No love lost between the Clintons and Obamas. Anyone can research that. You could say that the Trump is more close with the Clintons than the Obamas are. That's 100% fact.
That's true.
There's no love lost there.
People wouldn't realize that if they didn't really know much about their politics.
But if it goes back. So he had to divide, and now he picked a side and whatever.
And Chelsea and Ivanka were friends a long time. Those
Absolutely.
two palled around
They're
since
royalty.
They were kids.
They're New York royalty.
Yep.
Now, to go back, like you said, I don't believe Trump's a killer, but this is happening on his watch. This is embarrassing for Barr, and they're taking Barr to task, and they're taking Trump to task because this was a federal prison. And they're half right. I mean, at the end of the day, they can't micromanage what dickhead, corrections officer fucked up or not. And this, again, goes back to now the other conspiracy. So let's just say there is no conspiracy. Let's say this guy did hang himself, and you made a good point. I never thought about this. Maybe they cleared all that out, not for him to be killed, but they cleared all that out so he can safely kill himself. That's possible as well.
It's a billionaire.
Which is fishy.
It's a billionaire class, right?
Right.
The guy already tried to kill himself once, right? And
Or
I know
something.
there's some rumors that AG Barr went down there, but it didn't even take AG Barr. Anybody could have stopped down and talked to him and said, "Listen, bud, you're not getting out of this one. You lived a great life. You lived better than anybody else has ever lived. I mean, you set records for living. You were the real Hugh Hefner. So now's the time to just, check out. Like, let's not take everybody down with you. There's no getting out of this for you. So just take your own life and get out of here." And so they just leave him alone and just let nature take its course.
I think that Barr even said, it was Hugh Hefner meets Nickelodeon meets Disney Channel in a whopping extravaganza of fun and frolic. No, Barr did go down there. That was obviously, you're right. And it would be really interesting to hear what he told this fucking guy, of all people. Funny little conspiracy side note, as you found out, Barr's daddy hired Epstein when he was a young man to come work at that Dalton College. He was with no degree and no real skill set to get that job. But, boy, he was a smart guy, and they found something interesting. So 6 degrees of separation. Barr and Epstein are close, and Barr worked for a law firm that represented Epstein in some sort of indirect way. So they do know each other.
When Epstein was coming up, Epstein came up in Brooklyn. He's a child of Brooklyn. So these New Yorkers all knew each other. And Epstein, he had a middle-class family. He wasn't one of these billionaires, but he was smart. This guy is a math whiz.
Very smart.
And he rose through the ranks of Bear Stearns, which is a major financial organization.
As big as any hedge fund,
And he rose all the way up to the top. And I think that in the 90s, there was a lot of complex derivatives and things going on. And Epstein seemed to have a grasp on all of that stuff when I think a lot of the traders didn't even know what they were trading. And he made a lot of money for himself. He made a lot of money for his clients in there. And that's really the Bear Stearns job is what gave him the entry into all of this. And it is fascinating that he worked for AG Barr's dad at one point. I mean, nobody wants to talk about that, but that's just a bizarre coincidence.
A lot of people don't even know that. So let's go back to the death. Is this ineptitude? Should we be more mad? First of all, we should be mad that this guy's not going to face a trial. We're never going to see him talk. We're never going to get a microphone in his face. There's not going to be the big 2020 interview with Barbara Walters or whoever the fuck they get. It's not going to happen. We were deprived. And every inmate that's facing a trial, no matter how sensational it is kept safe so that they have their day in court, A, for themselves, because that's the kind of country we live in, but B, they need to be there so we can prosecute because that's how the system works. We were deprived of that. My point is this. Are we willing to believe? Let's go the ineptitude route. Throw away all conspiracies now. We have a problem here, folks. Camera breaks. Your camera hasn't broke since fucking 1992 on anything that has a camera. Camera malfunctions. Guards are overworked. Guards are not there due to maintenance. Man is taken off of suicide watch. Again, and I told you this, no microphone, no questions by the media. Who's the warden? Why is that warden not on CNN? Why is this psychologist of that jail not on CNN or Fox or for anybody for that matter? Why are we not journalistically forcing the fucking answers, but we want answers on every single thing that doesn't even matter we have to know about but we don't want to know.
I think sadly
what happened
this
here.
reeks of our intelligence agencies. We have way too much top secret bullshit in this country. Everything is fucking top secret. These people don't tell us anything. And what I think honestly happened is any of those conspiracies are right and any of those could play out. But we're not going to get any of this information because the government saw here an opportunity to snag all this information. You know, give Epstein the room to kill himself or help him kill himself, and then we can get all of this evidence that he has on the most powerful people literally in the world. And then once we have all of that, we can make whatever we want happen. And that's what seems to happen. The FBI right now is more powerful than it has been in 100 years. It has evidence and video evidence and photographic evidence on the most powerful people in the world, from Saudi Arabia to California.
Sure. Before we go to break, a couple of other points. This Ghislaine Maxwell, I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. It's kind of almost phonetically, but I've heard it's not how you pronounce it. Where is she? She's the procurer. She's the accessory. She is guilty. She's been involved in the sex acts with these girls. She procured all these girls from Mar-a-Lago and all these other places. She is free. Nobody's asking where she's at until now, for Christ's sakes, now that he's dead. We need some more answers. Why is she roaming around, not in cuffs in some country, if they really cared about getting to the bottom of this? And why are we not seeing the victims even saying, where is Maxwell? That's the lady that fucking made me do this.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how this happens. Is this going to be where, like AG Barr says, they go arrest some of these other people, they try to find ways to charge them and get information out? Or is all this just going to slowly go away, you know, like the Biggie and Tupac killings? It's really hard to tell with our government because they put a lot of resources into some things and other things they let go away.
Where in the world is Ghislaine?
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com. Space Coast Podcast. Talk hard!
All right. This is Doug Monda.
This is Karen Monda.
And Chris Hadaway.
And we're the host of Survive, the new podcast brought to you by the Survive First Foundation, a nonprofit organization assisting first responders and their families in need of mental health support due to the lifestyle of being a first responder. So, Chris, tell us what we're going to have.
We're coming to you from retired and active law enforcement officers as well as their spouses to discuss the responder life.
Don't forget, this is an unedited and raw podcast, so we need your interactive suggestions and advice to help us help others.
So find us live on our Survive First Facebook page and join in the conversation, or find us on demand on Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere you listen to podcasts, from the Space Coast Podcast Network to you.
Ruthless Politics would like to thank all of our badass sponsors. SFL Media, media for the modern world. Check them out at sfl.media. Video God, the best viral video site online. Check them out at videogod.com. Pure Clear Hemp, premium CBD isolate. Check that out at pureclearhemp.com. And Tall Circuit Technology, home automation experts. Of course, our show's hosted by Space Coast Podcast, and a special thanks to them.
All right, guys, here we go. We're back. Ruthless Politics, episode number 8, the Ocho, a real channel on the ESPN, according to Kid Chronic.
It is a real channel now.
Yes.
Check it out. It's funny.
I don't watch it. Is it professional dodgeball on there?
No, there is. There's like dodgeball. There's weird games like squirt
That's a
gun
real
wars
thing.
and shit.
Squirt gun wars.
Yeah.
Professional kickball.
I played in a dodgeball game where we hired the dodgeball ref to actually ref the game from the
Right.
movie. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, it was for a charity event. It was pretty
Very
good.
nice. Yeah. Dodgeball, well, these like adult sports things leagues have gotten very, very popular. They become like social events. So it's like
Kickball?
sports and then to the bar or whatever. Yeah, and it's like kickball and dodgeball and like you said, and squirt gun and
Speaking
and
of
bocce
athletic
ball.
people, what do you think about our boy Andrew Yang, the Yin Yang? He's
Yes,
moving up in
let's-
the ranks.
So let's go. We're going to put it into Epstein. It's been Epstein overload. So,
Epstein will be back, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll be talking about him, I'm sure, in the future. Yeah, so let's talk about fitness, because here's the segue. Andrew Yang making news for himself himself talking about fitness, ironically enough, at the Iowa State Fair where they deep fry butter, and I guess they tried to get him to eat that, and he said, over my dead fucking Asian body would I put deep fried butter in my mouth. And then he took his shot at Trump because apparently Trump likes deep fried bananas or whatever else junk food he likes. So you're probably a little familiar with this. Then we're going to go and talk about Andrew Yang's situation in this whole Democratic primary, which I think I've told you, I thought he was a dark horse for the longest. I like some of what he has to say. What did he say about Donald Trump being an obese pig or whatever he called him?
Well, I think that what happened is they were talking to Andrew Yang about food, and then he got into a whole thing about Donald Trump, and it became, do you think Donald Trump could run a mile? Which Yang said, no, I don't think he could run a mile.
Right.
And then there was it was kind of some jokes that maybe he should run a mile for the American people should be able to see that on TV.
He did say he'd pass out at the quarter-mile mark.
Yeah, and then he said,
faint.
what is that guy, like 280?
Yeah.
So he did take some serious shots at Donald Trump's health. And it was funny because Donald Trump didn't respond, which I thought was interesting because those were direct shots at Trump that he will almost always respond to.
Yes. Now, that is odd because where do you come back here? You can't say like, okay, yeah, can you even see if I ran that mile? Would you even be able to see me? He can't say that. Where do you go at this guy? You know what I mean? Like, how do you personally insult Andrew Yang? Maybe height. He did that with little Marco, but he can't use little Yang. He'd have to go Asian, and he can't do that. So he's almost handcuffed in how he insults this guy.
He would have to do like one of the old politicians did, like, well, I'm not going to take advantage of his inexperience. Like something clever like that. But Trump Trump doesn't really have that kind of defense.
That's not Pocahontas stuff.
And I think Trump is smart enough not to get into like a Twitter war or a troll war with younger people because Trump is the best of the old generation.
Yes, he
but
can
he
kill
ain't
Elizabeth
shit
Warren
on
and
the
Joe
younger
Biden.
generation.
No,
Any
Yang,
millennial will destroy him on
It could
Twitter.
be. Well, we haven't seen anybody go after him, but you're right. It's
but
the old
Yang
people.
would be a tough battle for him in a tweet battle because Yang is quick too. He's not a dummy.
I would love for Trump to come back and say something like, "What did you find this out in a fortune cookie?
That
Where
would've
did you
been
get
good.
this?"
That
You know what I
would've been
mean?
good.
Or like, or what did Confucius say that I weigh 280? I mean, So I got news for you though. If Yang keeps prodding, Trump will come back with something inevitably, but shit, everybody's scratching. Like all the comedy writers are like, "Hey, Donnie, I don't know what we can say to this guy. I mean, this guy, it's hard to go after this guy." So he's made himself a little more prominent as far as that goes. Then there was the crying incident, which you're not as big a fan of.
I felt like the crying thing was fake, and it just like hurts me to watch people do that. But I do think it was a real incident. I mean, I don't know if it was planned. It seemed,
to give a background on it,
but I've never seen like an Asian cry, so maybe I just don't know.
It is tough. Yeah, you Google that. You're not going to find a lot of YouTube videos on that one. But first of all, these things are staged, so that's number one. But I'm not sure with this guy because one of the things I like about him is he's very genuine, in my opinion, I've noticed. So a woman stood up and talked about how she lost a child to this was a gun violence thing. This happened right off of the shootings. And
her other child watched the child be shot. She had like a brother and a sister.
Right.
So
and then,
that's pretty terrible.
So absolutely. So she's giving her personal experience. And by the way, she wasn't even crying, interestingly enough. So she's giving her experience. And then I don't know if you saw this, he immediately says, "Can I come give you a hug?" He walks down, hugs the woman. And, I thought it was also very genuine because a lot of people don't go and do that. You know what I mean? And then he starts to reflect on his two children. He's got two young children. And he thought to himself, where the crying begins is, I'm picturing if this happened to my children. And, how would I deal with that? And it was a moment, and it's getting him up there.
It was a good TV moment, and it's on a bunch of good TV moments for him. He seems to have clarity about some things that really helps. I honestly got interested in Andrew Yang when he had a closeout speech in one of the debates, and he said, listen, if you're worried about global warming, guess what? It's too late. Move to higher ground. And that kind of just simple clarity, I was like, you know what? That's probably, honestly, as honest as you can get about global warming. And so that kind of got me interested in him. And then I went into his
He was very bold with that statement, by the way. That was a standout statement in that
And that was
debate.
kind of the beginning of this kind of like outbreak of his where he's kind of like busting out a little bit. And so then I started to look on his website, and I wanted to go through, what the hell is this guy's policy? And he has a bunch. And so I'm going to read a few to you, and then you tell me what you think about these too. Okay, ready? Democracy dollars. So this basically is every American gets $100 to invest in a political campaign. You get it every every year, and you can use it, and if you don't use it, it goes away. It's a democracy dollar. But if we give every American $100, they can wash out the lobbyists' money 8-1. So we can't get the lobbyists out of government, he argues, but we can put money in our own hands and then wash their money out.
It's a brilliant idea.
The congressman would have to be beholden to the people now because we have more money to spend than the corporations. So I think that's good. For reasonable gun legislation with a perpetual gun buyback. So the gun people can keep selling them and we'll keep buying them back. Freedom dividend. Every citizen, no exceptions, no matter how rich, poor, or whatever you are, you get $1,000 a month. We're the richest country in the world. I think people are going to like that. Medicare for all. Focus on health, life, and life expectancy as well. And so more holistic stuff, taking care of people, finding out while they're sick. He's for net neutrality. He's for legalizing marijuana on the federal level. He says the post office should provide basic banking to the citizens. He's for regulating and legalizing cryptocurrency. He wants the NCAA to pay the athletes. He wants to get rid of the stupid penny. The penny is useless. He wants an algorithm trading to be a crime on Wall Street. So if you're using a computer to better the markets, guess what? You're going to jail.
Right, you're cheating.
Every cop in the country gets a camera. Election day would be a holiday. End to all gerrymandering, a fund for the government to fund journalism, and he wants to regulate artificial intelligence. Tell me there's anything that's not smart about that plan.
I got to tell you that's a very his progressive stance and what he's talking about is, and by the way, you didn't mention anything as far as anything green on there, but I know he's big on that.
Let me say one more too. This is the last one I had. I was having trouble reading it, but this is a really good one. He wants the government to give you an exact tax bill. So no more paying accountants, no more paying H&R Block, no more like funny business
he
or
wants
whatever.
them to figure it out and
they
bill
figure
you.
it out and either take it out of the paycheck the right time or send us a bill at the end of the time, but none of this bullshit like everybody fills out their own taxes. I think it's good.
So here's the problem, and it's not with his ideas. This is what's wrong with America, folks, and this is why we kind of elected Donald Trump, even though he didn't have a lot of this here. For fucking 50, 60 years, we've been going down the toilet with a lot of these problems. We don't do any of this shit. So here comes this man with a lot of good ideas. My problem is, and the same thing with what a lot of Bernie Sanders talks about, I don't know how you're going to implement them because we're so fucked up. And so many people are going to disagree. And this is the shame of it all, is that whether it's the people don't agree, the politicians aren't going to agree, I don't know how many of those things, which really do make sense, can be implemented because you got to start picking your battles. They don't want the lobbyists out. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. Give the money to people. You don't keep this money. This money, matter of fact, should be a voucher that it's not spendable anywhere, and that now you get a good idea of who the people are backing with their money. Eliminate the lobbyists. Of course we should eliminate the lobbyists, but both sides don't want that. So we've never been able to do it. And the sad part is, as much as people hate Donald Trump, he's the only one that made inroads in that, in which he told you can't even go and get a job in that after government.
In that kind of scenario, Donald Trump has a lot of supporters that aren't that rich. So if he had $100, he would be a more powerful Republican if the electorate had $100 to give him.
Speaking of
so would
money,
a Bernie. A Bernie would be powerful
absolutely.
too.
It would help Bernie. It would help a Yang. Yep. Keep this in mind about Donald Trump, folks. You say what you want about him and all the bullshit. He beat Hillary Clinton with half the money. She raised double the money he did. Not just off lobbyists. I'm talking about in general. Total income taken, she raised $1.2 billion. He raised like $600 million.
He outworked her.
He outworked her, but he didn't out-earn her. He did not out-earn her.
No, but he outworked her.
And that's very rare.
She was snoozing, and he was flying city to city to city to city. And guess what, dude? That shit still works in America. America likes to be seen. America likes to be seen. They like to be included, and they like to have things in their area.
Here's the bottom line. America and the United States, whether we like it or not, will keep moving into a progressive direction.
That's why it's called progress.
Yeah, how batshit crazy it is, AOC, no, it's not going to go her way. And it may not go Bernie's way. But an Andrew Yang, a lighter version, not as bombastic, not as crazy as AOC, she could have a great Green Deal. It wasn't. It was terrible. But it will never get implemented. You could have 1 million great ideas and 1 million great business ideas. But if you don't get them implemented, they are worthless. And hers will never be implemented. These are very interesting points.
These are reasonable things. Now, I agree with you that the government is broken, but we as the citizens, we have to keep voting for what's right. Even if they fuck it up, we got to keep voting for what's right, and we got to keep pushing the progress, right? Now, Andrew Yang's plans, they seem very reasonable to me. I think that a lot of people on both sides could agree with these plans. Now, the real question is, can he put together a campaign? And now what I've seen him doing recently, it seems like that's starting to happen now. He has families that are getting the freedom dividend. So he's giving certain families $1,000 a month as sample families. That's something the media can eat up. That is advanced politics. So he may be right now starting to really coalesce in a real political force, and it's going to be fascinating to see.
Well, let me tell you why he is. First of all, let's talk about these next debates. And then I want to talk about the freedom dividend and the UBI because one would think I'm not a fan of that, but there's a reason I am because I did a deep dive on that, and people are only hearing the blurb about that. They're not actually realizing how that would be implemented, and he has a complete structure for how that would be. But let's go to the 9 Democrats. You had said that Yang made it over the threshold, and you're right. He is the final one as of now. So your next debates for the end of September, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you have the 9 that are in right now because it's, as we talked about, it's narrowing down. Biden, Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Beto O'Rourke, Amy Klobuchar made it over the
I don't know
threshold.
how. Is she even participating?
Yeah, I don't either. Well, you know
She's
what
so
it is?
quiet.
Well, she's a big centrist, and anybody that's looking for a centrist, like kind of not as progressive, because she's not.
She's a senator, right? Senators are very powerful, so you can kind of cruise on your senator.
And then Yang is the final one. Julian Castro and Tulsi Gabbard have the donor requirement.
So they
do
may
not have
make
the
it
poll
at
requirement.
the last second.
Nobody
But
else.
Here's what I will say. Tell me that's not a Democratic all-star list. Now that debates are getting small, Democrats are going to get a lot of time on TV to push these Democratic ideas. And by the time we roll into the general election, the American populace is going to be very used to hearing all this free shit that they're promised. I'm not sure if that'll come back to bite us or if it'll help us, but right there, that's an all-star squad.
It's a big key. The Democrats are getting nervous. The scuttlebutt is we need people to drop out. I went and looked at the Republican order of who dropped out against Trump. They don't all drop out at one time. It's 1, 2, 1, 3. It's all at different times. They actually gave the order of the dropouts. But they had more dropouts by this point than what the Democrats have. These people, I think, are going to have to start to fall off once they're not in that debate because, like you said, we don't hear what you have to say anymore. Your campaign, A, isn't going to raise any money because we don't hear you, and B, the average idiot does not know who any of these people are. They know 3 of the candidates except what they've been spoon-fed, and you have to walk away to give these people more airtime. So you're right. We're going to go from 2 nights of 20 people to 1 night of what at this point is 9, and we'll get to hear from them more.
But that's still not that much of a gain because you still have the same amount on each night.
Unfortunately,
so even though we're losing a night, we're still not going to get a lot of time. It would be nice if they divided this into 2 nights still between the 9, but I don't know if we'll get that.
I don't think that's the plan, but that would be good too. 5 and 5.
That would be better.
But
more time for the candidates.
The good news is, or the bad news, depending how you see this, there's a lot more debates to come, remember, and it will narrow down. At the end of the day, in my opinion, Klobuchar, when it starts getting down to the nitty-gritty, Klobuchar will not be there. I don't know if Cory Booker will be there, and I don't know if Beto O'Rourke will be there. So, again, we will come down to a final 5 of Biden, Kamala, Warren, Bernie. Those 4 are not going anywhere, no matter what anybody says.
Yes. And then you're going to get a sweetheart guy in there. Maybe a Yang.
Yang
or
Buttigieg. So you may have 6.
Yeah.
And that's where that's going to go. I think your Cory, your Beto, and your Klobuchar will fall off out of that 9. And I would defy anybody to try to disagree with that because that's really where the polling is at and how it stands shake down. Now, going back to Yang about this UBI, Universal Basic Income. By the way, something we also neglected, tying right into the UBI. The UBI is about, it all centers around the lack of jobs in the future due to artificial intelligence. So people need to understand this. This guy is not just trying to give this money away for no reason. He has said it in every debate, and he falls back on it every time, no matter what you ask him. This is his policy, his number one go-to. And I think it is what he's trying to do. But he's not talking, I think he's pro-reparations, but he's not going around talking about reparations all the time. He is talking about this. The bottom line is, folks, we are not doing enough to realize that in 20 years, there is going to be a shitload of jobs that do not exist. And we have to face that fact. Just like robots started taking over for the car industry, the auto industry, robotic arms putting doors on. What did it do? It rendered a lot of people out of work. You're going to eliminate the driving business. You're going to eliminate the service business. You're going to eliminate the bartending business. You're going to eliminate the fast food workers. All of your what they call bottom dwellers or your service people will be rendered useless. And if they don't go and get skills, which he should also integrate into his thing is, yeah, you can go to school for free to code.
Yeah.
Everyone who learns to code goes for free.
You want to be an X-ray technician. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a nurse.
There are going to be needs, but he's giving this out because what the fuck are you going to do when all these people don't have jobs or money?
And that's
you got a bigger problem.
That's a ticket. I don't know if he can paint that picture because it's politics. You're kind of supposed to be rosy when you're a Democrat. But here's the reality, guys. I don't know if you've seen Player One, the Spielberg movie on video games where everybody's kind of living in a shitty tin can.
I wanted to.
But what you have to wrap your head around is that the freedom dividend is this. It keeps your rent, dude. It keeps a fucking roof over your head. So if you're a truck driver that loses your job, if you're a checkout person that loses your job, if somehow your job is automated away, all right, you got $1,000 coming in from the government. You got a roof over your head. $1,000 pay rent just about anywhere. So, that's the whole deal there. And it's a direct injection into the spending economy. So it
100%.
I think if you can tax people at the higher brackets a little bit more and you can get the loopholes closed with the corporations, he wants to fix this tax thing.
And he's not even trying to do that.
This freedom dividend will help us get through automation.
I challenge anybody. You must read how he wants to do this. So the other thing he's trying to do is there's going to be an Amazon tax.
Which they paid no taxes.
Right. And it's not even necessarily on them completely, but there's going to be it's like a penny or so surcharge on every Amazon transaction that will garner and generate money toward this program. Even if it's not going to fund all of it, it's going to fund a shitload of it. So that's an ingenious idea. Fuck Amazon.
I do a lot of e-commerce, right? You know this. We do a lot of e-commerce in the tech company. And the thing is that e-commerce, there's laws and there's rules and there's different ways that you can get away paying taxes. So people will go to like a Panama where it has no tax on foreign income. So if you have a huge website and you make a lot of money in e-commerce sales, you can go to Panama and you can pay no taxes on that income. So by Andrew Yang going after e-commerce, which makes a lot of money with not so much work, and putting that money in to replace all the jobs that are going away with automation, it just makes perfect sense. I think that's a great place to get the money.
Also, keep in mind, I implore anybody to read on this before they shit on it because, more welfare. No. Just so you know, if you're already getting this money, if you've already qualified for money, this is already part of your money. So now let's say you're getting $700 a month for welfare, what have you. You're not getting $1,700. You're getting $1,000. You're getting $300 more than you were already getting. So it's not like another, how do you do? Here's another $1,000.
It's not a double, it's not a raise
off
for people in the
No, it is
welfare.
not.
But also, if you're rich, you don't get screwed on this one. If you're a person and you make $1 million a year and you're a successful American, you still get your dividend.
They get it too. Now, here's the thing. He also said, they asked him, would illegals or undocumented people get this? He said no.
Smart.
I think that's very
Smart
important.
man. Yep.
He's not even pandering anyone who's here gets the money, dude.
If you're looking for clarity in politics right now, Andrew Yang's your man. If you're looking for a guy that just gives the common sense right answer 99.9% of the time, then this is your guy.
Andrew Yang is going to go far, and I hope that, number one, he gets the proper questions and being addressed as these other more popular candidates. I watched him fuck Ron Paul. He did not get the pulpit as much because they don't want to hear what he has to say. But boy, they made sure you heard what Mitt Romney had to say every single moment. It's important that Yang also, he sits very quietly in these debates and kind of waits his turn, whereas Kirsten Gillibrand is all over it and interrupting everybody. And he's got to seize his moments. I think that'll start to come as it narrows down.
And I think he's kind of done it well. Sometimes sitting back and letting everyone destroy each other is not a bad method when there's this many candidates.
Andrew Yang is the Ron Paul, and I thought I told you this. He's the Ron Paul and the Bernie Sanders of the young people. He has the most grassroots support right now. The Yang gang and on the internet and the folks that are backing this guy, he's got a lot of young people, folks. He will get more. Everybody always wondered, why does Ron Paul have so many young fans? Why did Bernie Sanders why do these 80-year-old men have such a young fan base? And people couldn't understand it. It was because of their policies. It wasn't about their age. I think Yang, a young man, has the same luster for young people. Some of this I was not even familiar with.
He can pull some like an Obama can because he has those hip policies. He's young and cool. He speaks like a young person. I was in a debate online with a bunch of people about Andrew Yang, and one of the persons was like, I don't think America's ready for an Asian president. And I thought, I don't even know what that means. I thought to myself, yes, they are. You know why? Because Asians are so astute. They're always on top of their game. I think Americans would be very comfortable with an Asian leader.
Well, who would determine that we're ready for a black president?
I don't even think that's a hurdle.
But not an Asian president.
Well, this is just what people say in these online debates, So I totally think that's ridiculous. I think that Andrew Yang's real hurdle honestly, is getting people used to the idea that the government could give you $1,000 and that could actually work and that's viable. Because it's so ludicrous to Americans who are used to getting screwed by their government every day that their government would actually give them something that would really help them. I mean, they'd be flabbergasted.
Before we go to break, I implore anybody who's listening, whether you're for Yang or not, go and read his policies. I would much rather Donald Trump be in office again. I have to say that. But I will say this, that when Trump is reelected, and I believe he will be, because I don't know if Yang has the power yet, and Biden's falling, and we want to talk about even his flubs, but I would love to see Yang be the next Democrat that makes it into this. You know, we know ping pongs.
Let me ask you this: would you vote for Biden if Yang was the VP?
Oof.
Because you got to figure, hey man, Biden could die.
No, well, yeah,
that's the closest way we could actually get Yang in.
That's all you're hoping
office,
for. Because Biden is such a Obama-phile and an acolyte of the establishment that he wouldn't implement any of that shit.
He wouldn't, but it'd be like
having
having someone in waiting.
So here's what we're hoping for, and we can go out to break. Jesse, cue up the music. Get me some of that Benny Kravitz going. Here's the bottom line. Whoever did Epstein, let's get Biden in, call that same person, and see if you can make your magic happen.
That's terrible. Ruthless Politics would like to thank all of our badass sponsors. SFL Media, media for the modern world. Check them out at sfl.media. Video God, the best viral video site online. Check them out at videogod.com. Pure Clear Hemp, premium CBD isolate. Check that out at pureclearhemp.com. And Tall Circuit Technology, home automation experts. Of course, our show's hosted by Space Coast Podcast, and a special thanks to them.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com.
Space Coast Podcast.
Talk hard!
Hey, I'm Vinny with the all-new Vinny Marino Podcast. I want you to join me every other Monday as we tackle all the craziest headlines from around Florida and truly explore and uncover what's missing. Also, we will invite the exciting guests from our community who have seen it all and aren't afraid to spill the beans about it. And finally, we can't forget about Vinny's top 3 rants and raves about traffic, restaurants, and events. Join us on Facebook as we go live and bring you behind the scenes of each show and let you be a part of it. The Vinny Marino Podcast, all Space Coast, super raw and unedited, straight to your dome all the time, live from the Space Coast Podcast Studios. Listen everywhere you find podcasts.
Hello. Okay, we are back. We are back. Okay, I know you heard about Russian nuclear-powered cruise missile blowing up. Okay, yes, it has happened. And now your fucking American media has outed everything. Mini Chernobyl. Now, I know Kid Chronic knows more about this than I do because I don't even want to tell you. Vladimir Putin keeps everything very close to the vest and the chest. Kid Chronic, tell everybody in America about this mini Chernobyl lie.
Okay, so basically, I guess what's happened here is the Russians exploded a nuke over the ocean, basically. That's what happened. This thing blew up and...
On a missile.
Yeah, it's on a missile. So this missile is the same missile that Putin basically had a video, and he had a State of the Nation, they call it over there. So he had a State of the Nation address. He had a video of this nuke. He was displaying like how great it was. And they have... The way that this nuke works is it has like a little nuclear reactor on it, so it kind of like leaks and as it's like flying. So they have to test it over the ocean. And then worse, this one blew up. They've called it a mini Chernobyl. 5 of Russia's like top nuclear scientists stayed behind to try to like clean this up, and they ended up dying.
They're dead.
Now another 2 have died. So it's a bit of a mess. And this comes as probably one in a few different events that have happened recently that have really shined a light on how disorganized Russian military is. So Putin paints this picture like he is so in control, this KGB guy, and he probably is in certain factions. But when it comes to the military, it's very disorganized. Let me give you a few things here. Okay, so a series of military mishaps for Putin. Here's one of them. They had 14 sailors died in a nuclear subfire. The sub literally caught fire. Then they had another full sub crew lost when it was at the bottom of the sea and the thing just sunk. It went under. So they've had serious military mishaps. And now they have this cruise missile going over the ocean and this thing blows up. That's supposed to be like their top new military weapon. So I'm just asking, do you think the Russian military is in shambles?
Here's the thing. I think that the Russian military is not as strong as the United States military. I think everybody knows that.
I don't even think it's close anymore.
I
think they have an internet military. They have a meme-making military.
Well, they know what the future's about, much like China. But however, and again, we don't know because that's why they do these tests. It's all about the nukes, right? It's all about
this
the nukes.
particular nuke is called the SSC-X-9 Skyfall.
And Skyfall, ironically enough, the name of a James Bond movie. It probably all ties in together. This missile, they say, was supposed to be able to hit an American city in 5 minutes. Like, this was a high capable, very fast, you can't react kind of situation. I think that Russia is a boogeyman as far as militarily because they still are a superpower. If you had to take the top 5 military superpowers, we put them in there. It's all about the nukes, baby. And I don't know what they can test and what they can and what works. And I think that's everybody kind of wonders, like, if you launch a nuke, is it really going to hit? Is it really going to work? As we could see what they did here, no, it didn't. It fucked their own people up. But Russia's power is in the fact that they have a shitload of nukes. And on a side note, I don't know if you know this, but Donald Trump, again, a lot of pro-Russia talk with this guy. He backed out of the nuclear arms treaty with Russia, like not even a week or two ago, pissing Putin off. And I think that's why this missile thing happened, by the way, because it was like, oh, you don't want to play now the nuclear missile game with us, and like that we're all sharing the info.
Putin had been ignoring the agreement for many, many years.
Okay.
And so that's, they'd been ignoring the agreement. We knew about it. And so that's, I think, why the U.S. government pulled out. And I'm not sure who in the government decided to pull out or why it was chosen now. But that missile very well may be a response. The other thing that's really fascinating about the Russian military is that they're actually pretty weak when it comes to conventional wars that we have now because they have like no aircraft carriers. They have like one that leaks. The American aircraft carrier, we come with an aircraft armada. So we show up with an aircraft carrier and then that comes with a sub beneath it to protect it and a series of boats around it. And then from that aircraft carrier, we just bombard you with jets, until you basically, your country has nothing left. That's the modern military war. And Russia doesn't even have the ability to do that. So we could pull up off their shore and bomb them to pieces and there's not a damn thing that they could ever do about it.
Here's what it says here, really quick. President Trump announced in October he plans to terminate the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces, the INF Treaty, with Russia raising concerns about a return of a Cold War-style tension over the deployment of intermediate range missiles in Europe and elsewhere, and the future of the 2010 new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. So they're saying that his sudden decision followed a years-long Russian dispute over whether Moscow has developed and deployed prohibited missiles. So he's basically saying, you're not playing by the rules anyways. We're not going to sit here and play by the rules and stay in this. By the way, he kind of did the same thing with the Paris Climate Accord. While people disagree with that, I think his big reason was, first of all, he always said, we will jump back in at any time. My problem is that you're asking America to clean up more than anybody else, foot the bill for more than anybody else. And by the way, China and India, you don't have to play by the rules for 30 years. And a lot of people, if you're pro-American or if you're pro-fairness, should have a little bit of a problem with that. I know we're supposed to spearhead everything, but it's also like NATO. Why did he do that? Because we're the number one muscle, the biggest dick, and the biggest wallet? Come on, man.
Politics is a sausage, dude. You don't always get what you want, and it's politics when you're dealing with other nations. The Paris Climate Accord was the best we could get at the time. It was a start.
Maybe.
You didn't have to stick to it. You weren't bound to it.
Right.
It was a goal. So leaving it was actually completely pointless. It made a point. He's like, you know what? I'm 70-something fucking years old. I don't give a fuck about the environment. That's what he's saying.
He certainly doesn't give a fuck about it on the level that a lot of other politicians do. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. He does not prioritize it the way somebody else would say, hey, and again,
he just went after endangered species. And personally, I think that, things are...
Oh, you saw him stab that manatee on YouTube?
Things are going like endangered all the time. It's like part of like human progress, right? Like you don't have dinosaurs anymore. But I thought that, that's kind of like a general human thing. That we try to save some of these animals. We didn't want to end up on a planet with just us, But I guess Trump's totally cool with that.
if you I don't know if you know this, but in Florida, the alligator was endangered. It was endangered. Then we bent over backwards to take care of him, rub his belly, hang the chicken from his mouth so he
On
can
the
get
airboat ride, throw him the little piece
Yeah.
of chicken.
We even we have a poor man's Disney World where you can go on an airboat ride at some fucking park where you can just be around 1,000 predators. But here's the news. They're back with a vengeance. And now you got meth gators, man. You got those meth gators. Should have let those gators
what
die.
does it say about humanity that if you just leave humanity untethered, they will find a species of something and just kill it till it's dead? Like, that's our nature. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if we come across something, we're like, let's kill them all.
I got news for you. One thing that they want to kill, on a side note, speaking of critters, is this iguana infestation in Florida, especially South Florida, is overwrought with iguanas, and you are allowed to kill them, but you have to do
They
it
said by any means necessary.
pretty much, except poisoning. You can't. They don't want you to. It can't be a slow death.
Because if you poison them, they could get eaten by other animals. It's a whole thing.
That's the other thing, and that they don't want them to suffer. So they literally said, like, you can smash them over the head with a hammer. It has to be instant death. Shoot them, smash them over the head, but no plucking their fingers off.
I see a lot
or hanging
of
them by their tongue.
I see a lot of iguanas around. They're everywhere. They don't bother me though. I have come to peace with them. I see lizards and iguana all over South Florida.
Right.
I don't participate in the murdering of them. I know a lot of people are like hip to it now because it's like a thing. It's just bizarre.
Part of the problem is that they are becoming a nuisance. So what is a nuisance? Is their shit
Are they
is
going to run us
toxic.
out of the cities? Like, what's the worry?
Well,
here?
the salmonella, and you don't need your dog to bite one by accident and all that. So I don't think you're right. I don't think they're a problem for people, other than that they're scary. They don't want one jumping on the hood of their car. But they're a critter like a raccoon.
This
They're
is
a
so
nuisance.
Florida. We're off into Florida politics now, but this is the dumb shit that Florida does. Florida says, well, we have an iguana problem. So rather than put a team together or hire some specialist, because we have tons of money in Florida, all of our cities have surpluses because of tourism, they empower the citizenry to go around killing these animals. Like, this is going to lead to a myriad of crimes, bad videos, crazy Florida posts. Like, it's just stupid.
It's not only is it taking off, but I'm hearing that rumor is the next Purge movie is going to be Purge 5, the iguanas. And it's not even going to be about killing people. It's going to just be about
Purge 5.
Purging all
the
iguanas.
iguanas starring Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
There's only two things you can kill in America: iguanas and Epstein.
And nobody will mind. We're getting close to the end of the show here. It is Ruthless Politics. It's episode number 8. Number 8, folks. Get your dodgeballs and your kickballs out and have a good time. We've got 2 little things that happened this week that we found at least very interesting, not tremendously newsworthy, probably one more than the other. The movie The Hunt. This has been very controversial because this movie by Blumhouse Films, they make a lot of horror movies. They actually make a lot of good material. And by the way, Blumhouse TV was the one who made the Roger Ailes Showtime movie that I raved about. So Blumhouse puts out this movie, The Hunt, and I'll let you talk about where it came from and its idea. But here's the bad news, folks. Much like that Seth Rogen movie, well, I guess they didn't kill that entirely, but you're not going to be able to see The Hunt unless somehow you find it online or some sort of bootleg, because they have canceled it. And why did they cancel it? Tell us.
Well, basically what happened is the right wing got upset because the people being hunted in the movie were called deplorables. So obviously it was a modern day take on what is a very old story. The story that we all read when we were in school, at least the one that I read, was called The Most Dangerous Game, and it was written by Richard Connell. Now, The Most Dangerous Game is a story about people that were rich elite people, and they wanted to hunt the most dangerous game. They wanted to hunt a worthy adversary. And so they captured a person, and then they let him loose on an island, and then they hunted the person. The thing about the story is the person wins. That's the thing. So Trumpies heard that there was a new version of the movie coming out, and it was on the tail of this shooting, so it was already sensitive. And then the Trumpies got furious when they found out that deplorables were going to be hunted, which I thought was hilarious.
Of course you did.
Yeah, because think of how deplorables act online every day, and then there's a movie that they're going to be hunted. They're so
No,
fucking
people on the
sensitive.
left
Talk
are
about fucking snowflakes.
People on the
These
left are
fucking
totally sensible.
snowflakes.
Yeah, I
but
know.
so here's
So
the deal.
sensible.
Here's the deal. So they get the movie canceled, and Universal pulls the plug. Like, they're not like it's just going out online. This movie is done.
Right.
Universal pulled the plug on the movie, and if the movie's true to the real story, then the deplorables would have won in the end and killed the liberals, and it would be a great movie for Trump. But it's classic. You guys don't read deep enough and then kill it before you even realize it's good for you.
Here's unfortunate, and that is one way of looking at it. Now, to say that only righties are sensitive is pretty ridiculous. We know the left is sensitive, and that's who's controlling all the
Bleeding
speech.
heart liberals we are.
Yeah, exactly. It's so bleeding heart, as you know. Here's the bottom line. In this climate of those two shootings, it's very irresponsible to put commercials out of this, because if people are on the brink and people are thinking of killing people, whatever side they're on, and people are mad and all disenchanted and all this other shit, this would be a call to arms for people. Somebody stupid, somebody on drugs, somebody whatever is going to watch this movie and not take it the way you're taking it, and they're going to just be like, well, it's hunting time. So that, unfortunately, is a problem. Remember, a Bernie Sanders supporter went after and shot Steve Scalise, almost killed him at that softball game where he just hunted politicians. By the way, Democrats and Republicans both there.
That's true, and that's
we
sad.
don't need. Again, I mean, and by the way,
here's the thing, though. We're talking
movies.
about free speech here. This is a movie, people. I hate when people's progressivism rolls over my fucking freedom, dude. That shit pisses me off. And I'm a liberal. And here's the thing, guys. Policy is bad. So if you have a policy that discriminates against women, that discriminates against deplorables, that discriminates against a group of people, that is bad. If you have conversation, if you have media, movies, TV shows that discriminate against people, that's not bad. That's just free speech. So you can make jokes at other people's expenses. You could say boobs on TV. You can talk about killing someone fictitiously. You can do all of that because that is part of free speech. Now, if that turns into actual political policy that keeps you from getting a job, that keeps you from being happy, from succeeding in life, then that's something we can talk about. But the idea that just people saying or acting something out is somehow wrong or something that other people can't handle, that's fucking bullshit. And people need to wake the fuck up and they need to stop being babies about the media they consume.
Well, this free speech thing is it's all coming to an end. This is what the battle is for. I mean, as we've seen with Twitter, I mean, you're not free to say whatever you want. They will freeze your account, whether it's for 24 hours. Facebook does the same thing for you. You can say, you thought you could say what you want, something that's relevant.
You can't say white trash on Facebook. That's a 48-hour ban.
So imagine that. So we're in an era now where we had free speech when it was just speech out of your mouth. That was more likely. Once it goes down on paper, now it became a little different. Once it's in a movie, now it's a little different. And certainly now, in this era of social media where everybody has a platform, everybody has a pulpit, everybody's upset over everything, this powder keg of bullshit on social media, it is not free speech anymore. Proof of that as well, my friend.
Okay.
Let me just say this. Go to Google when you get a chance and look up how free speech is implemented in Europe. Oh my God, they will come knocking at your fucking door for a Facebook post and put you in jail. Let me just say, they put that guy in jail because he taught his dog to Heil Hitler. It's a joke. He's
well,
not
you're talking
a real
to
Nazi.
somebody who was brought in by the Secret Service over Facebook. So I've had social media in free speech.
So free speech
get
is
me
gone.
Get me dragged in.
Right.
But here's the scenario that I think that people need to think about. So this movie may be in, like, let's say, poor taste because you're killing people over politics, which might be distasteful. But now, does that fast forward? What about Vietnam War movies? What about movies that have exposed political stuff? What about movies that have exposed, crimes, or documentaries? Let's say, like, where do you draw the line on this? And that's why all this stuff needs to be protected, and people can't get sensitive over things they don't like. Guess what? It's okay not to like something. Don't go to the movie. Don't support the director in his next movie. Go write an angry Facebook post about it. But what you can't fucking do is shut it down. That's bullshit.
Well, again, and that was always a slippery slope. It was like you heard people say that went to war. I'm not fighting for your right because I believe in what you're saying. I'm fighting for your right for you to say it. So that includes all the negative stuff that we don't like. There are people that don't like pornography. It still exists. There are people that don't like really bad rap music that's very misogynistic or violent. It still exists. And again, it's supposed to be turn the channel, don't listen, whatever. This one, I think, this movie would have came out if those shootings didn't happen. So let's make that very clear. This was a knee-jerk reaction because it looked like a bad move, and nobody needs a lawsuit. I'm sure it had to do with money that somebody says, well, on my manifesto, I saw the hunt, and that's why I went and shot some deplorables.
How would you feel if
They
you were
don't
an
need that.
investor in that movie and
You're
then
fucked.
Universal pulls the plug?
You lost money.
You lost a lot of money.
You lost a lot of money. Now, I will say, based on the stars of that movie and the lack of CGI, that it probably didn't cost too much. But I'm going to say that $50 million for sure. That movie cost her $40 million.
Movies are expensive to make. You've got stars in the movie.
Absolutely,
They're still getting paid whether it's released or not.
We went over our time. Why don't we save this John McAfee story for next time?
John McAfee. I
Or
love
do- or
the
you wanna-
McAfee story. No, we'll get into it next time.
We can
leave
save
them-
that for next
leave
time.
them with bated breath.
Yeah, John McAfee, very interesting character. He's on the run. He's not on the run. Cryptocurrency guy, knows how to pump and dump cryptocurrency with the best of them. And apparently he has an interesting blueprint. We'll get into this next time for the upcoming civil war and how the country is going to be split with all the guns and where everybody's supposed to go to protect themselves. He had a very little interesting stint on that. We'll go into that next week. Again, you're listening to Ruthless Politics. We got Kid Chronic. We got Trees. Episode number 8. We'll be back again. We're at the Space Coast Podcast Studios as always.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Or week. It's
the
Tuesday. What am I doing? It's Tuesday.
Yeah, great week.
Have a great week,
weekend.
everyone.
All right.
Said weekend.